This is Keep the Faith Ministry News. I'm Hal Mayer. 4 years ago, the British Parliament voted to redefine marriage in the United Kingdom without giving the people the opportunity to have a voice in such an enormously significant issue through a referendum or other means. Australia is at least giving the people a plebiscite, a non-binding, though official government voluntary opinion poll. Perhaps the experience of Britain can be instructive to the Australian people. On gender, Prime Minister Theresa May has made proposals to abolish any need for a medical consultation before gender reassignment in favor of simply filling out an official form. A Ministry of Equality's press release explicitly announced that the proposals were designed to build on the progress of same-sex marriage. Guardian journalist Roz Kaveni boasted that changing your gender is now almost as simple as changing your name by statutory declaration. The British gender revolution is seen everywhere. For instance, Transport for London has prohibited the use of the heteronormative words such as ladies and gentlemen. Meanwhile, universities across the nation are threatening to mark down students who continue to use the words he and she instead of gender-neutral pronouns, which must be applied uniformly. Stonewall, the UK's largest LGBT lobby's Orwellian tagline, "Acceptance without exception," can be seen plastered on posters and adverts. Politicians attempt to out-radical one another in the race to be an original champion in the next emancipatory front of trans rights. On freedom of religion, much has been made in the UK about supposed exemptions designed to ensure that believers would always be allowed to stay true to their convictions. 4 years later, however, the very same people who made heartfelt promises now work tirelessly to undermine them. Equality's Minister Justine Greening insisted that churches must be made to keep up with the modern attitudes. Likewise, the Speaker of the House of Commons, a position supposedly defined by his political neutrality, said, "I feel we'll only have proper equal marriage when you can, expletive, get married in a church if you want to do so, without having to fight the church for the equality that should be your right." Tim Farron, the leader of England's third largest political party, the Liberal Democrats, is a practicing Christian. Once journalists discovered that, they demanded to know if he believed homosexual sex to be sin. Farron pointed out that he had been a strong advocate of LGBT rights legislatively and said his private convictions should not be confounded with his public position. Shortly after the campaign, Farron resigned, saying that it was now impossible for a believing Christian to hold a prominent position in British politics. In spite of Britain's foster crisis, aspiring foster parents who identify as religious face interrogation. Those who are deemed unlikely to celebrate homosexuality have had their dreams of parenthood scuppered. Britain's High Court ruled that a Pentecostal couple were ineligible parents even though the court recognized their successful and loving record of adoption. They decreed that above all else, the equality provisions concerning sexual orientation should take precedence. And on freedom of speech, in the lead up to the parliamentary vote, there was almost incomprehensible bullying. David Burrows, MP, a mild-mannered supporter of the Coalition for Marriage, had excrement thrown at his house. His children received death threats, and their school address was published online. Many hard-working Brits have lost their jobs. Adrian Smith was sacked by a Manchester housing trust for suggesting that the state shouldn't impose its rules on places of faith and conscience. Richard Page was fired for gross misconduct after saying that children might enjoy better outcomes were they to be adopted by heterosexual couples. Simultaneously, contrary to steadfast government assurances, small businesses have been consistently targeted. Courts in Northern Ireland ruled that the Asher's Family Bakery had acted unlawfully. What crime was committed by this tiny business? Politely declining to decorate a cake with a political message in support of same-sex marriage. The courts maintain that business owners must be compelled to promote the LGBT cause, irrespective of personal convictions. Even the National Trust, a British institution with over 4.2 million members, has decided to join LGBT bullying. Each of the Trust's 62,000 volunteers will be required to wear a compulsory same-sex rainbow badge. Those who said they'd rather not were told they would be moved out of sight until they were prepared to publicly demonstrate inclusive tolerance. And for children across the UK, sex education has been transformed and disfigured. TV programs aimed at children as young as 3 promote gender fluidity as an enabler of thoughtfulness and individuality. At the same time, ministers have denied worried parents the right to withdraw their children from primary school classes. Meanwhile, outside educators teach children about sex positions, satisfying pornography consumption, and how to masturbate. Concerns regarding STIs and promiscuity are derided as old-fashioned, and religious schools are under intense scrutiny. A Jewish girls' school failed a review by Ofsted, a regulatory body, on one issue alone: inadequate promotion of homosexuality and gender reassignment. Ofsted said the school failed to ensure a full understanding of fundamental British values. And this was despite the fact that the school had passed a previous review with flying colors. So, Aussies, what kind of society do you want to live in? Likewise also as it was in the days of Lot. Luke 17, verse 28. This is Keep the Faith Ministry News. Thank you for watching.